about difference in terms of our real lives and our social media lives. And are we different and in what ways, okay? Excited about that? Okay, awesome, that's great. All right. So before we start, I need to do some public service announcements. There will be stock imagery in this presentation. I might make the occasional unintentional or intentional cliche. I might generalize. So if any of you are offended by this, I think you should leave now. Is anyone offended? Okay, cool. All right, that's good. I'm excited. All right, next one. This will contain public voting as well. So if you open up the app, this app here, the Topi app, you'll find that there's a survey in my session, and you can follow the instructions here if you haven't already done it. And later on, we're going to walk through a couple of questions around who we are online and offline. And I'd really appreciate it if you could fill in the survey, preferably, while also listening to me. But I'm sure you can, do two things at once, being social media experts. And then afterwards, I'll produce a whole bunch of content about your outputs and your thoughts, and we can have a further discussion on social media. Okay? Awesome. All right, let's get going. Okay, so it's 2018. It's a really, really, really exciting time, isn't it? A little bit confusing, but definitely exciting. There's artificial intelligence entering our world, robots jumping over boxes and opening doors and all kinds of things. Soon we'll have fifth-generation networks where you might actually get mobile phone coverage in some parts of London. We'll have the Internet of Things with sensors being able to tell you all kinds of things about yourself and the things around you. Really, really fascinating. You'll have blockchain. We might all understand what blockchain is by that point, and we'll all be using it to transact and giving me money, I'll give you money, whatever we do with it, we'll figure that bit out. We might even go to Mars if Elon Musk has his dream come true. We might all go to Mars in our lifetime. I mean, that's pretty amazing, isn't it? So it's kind of a really, really, really exciting time. It's not exciting for everyone, obviously. Without laboring on this point too much, clearly it is a difficult moment in the world's history as well. There's great potential. There's also lots and lots of not very nice things happening as well, as we're all sure. Okay, but it's all right. Don't panic because you've got smartphones. You've got social media. You've got yourselves. You've got your real life. You're really here. There's people, obviously, hi, Mum. People at home or on their devices looking at this right now. But you are here. So you've got many, many cool things in your life. Okay, but here's the thing. Who are we and what are we in those worlds? Now, I've put a bit of content here from a company called Tappable who did a survey of 500 millennials, and sorry, I hate that term as much as I'm sure many of you do, so hence the inverted commas on it. But they did a short survey of 500 millennials asking them how much they could live without their smartphone, and some of the highlights are on the screen behind me. So 10% would be willing to lose a finger rather than their smartphone. It's only a mild smattering of applause, so I guess there's quite a lot of people who might buy into that. Give up drinking, obviously, yeah, I'm sure a lot of us don't drink and could give up drinking, understand that one. Swap sex for their smartphone, actually 50%, yeah, so more than a finger, interesting. And they'd rather lose one of their 5 senses than lose their smartphone. In the room, how many of you could live without your smartphone? Any hands up? I like it, that's good. Use a tablet instead, right? Okay, cool. All right, so what's driving this whole crazy world of internet culture that we're seeing at the moment? I'm sorry if you've seen this diagram. I don't know how many times you've seen it in the last 2 or 3 days, so I apologize if it's the 15th time. But just in case you haven't, this is what happens in an internet minute in 2018. The credit is on the bottom right-hand corner, so please give these people some love on social media, because this is an incredible bit of content. As you can see from it in summary, there are millions and millions and millions of videos, photographs, lots of Tinder swipes still happening, lots and lots of posts, lots and lots of content being developed. So I think in terms of what are we at and what are we using this smartphone for, increasingly it's to generate content, view content. I mean, you all know that already, right? But what are people actually seeking when they look at this content? This is the kind of theme around today that we're going to explore in a lot more detail. Are they looking for speed of information? Do they want to be up to date and know all the things as fast as they possibly can? Do they want to, get some kind of attention grab? Is that more important to them? Is relevancy important to them? There's lots and lots of different ways that we might consume this content. So definitely kind of ponder on that as we work through some of the points in the rest of this presentation. This third one's quite interesting. It takes 0.05 seconds for you, all of you people out there, and me, to make a decision about a piece of web content that you see. And the 0.0, as I put here, I haven't made a mistake on that. So it's nowhere near even a second that we go to a piece of content or a website and we make an absolutely instantaneous decision about how relevant that is to us, whether it's going to speak to us, whether it's given us what we need in terms of the attention grab. I think that's really, really fascinating. I think it could actually be even shorter than that, because I'm sure a lot of you can kind of identify with going to something and clicking away, going to something, clicking away. We do it all the time, don't we? So it's really challenging as brands. And I think, I want you as brand owners and people who represent them, to really think about that immediate grab of attention. It's really, really imperative, perhaps more so than ever. I also think it's quite fascinating how many meetings of, people I work with, meetings I've sat in, companies I've worked for, is that, is mobile the very first thing that you talk about? Are smartphones the main device that you talk about in your planning meetings? It's still amazing how it isn't necessarily the first thing we talk about, How long we labor on a desktop site design, how long we labor on various parts of content and don't necessarily think about how it fits in the form factor of our smartphones. But I think all the stats here around the 60 seconds of an internet minute, they really point to the fact that it's absolutely essential that these things work quickly and that you try and get cut through in this crazy situation that we're looking at here. All okay so far? Okay, cool. There's a big but here, though. If you just read the screen behind me while I have a swig of water. As you can tell, I can talk a lot, so I need to take occasional breaks. How much of this is true, though? How much are we, lying? Lying to ourselves, lying to each other? How much of what we say is actually true? That survey I've already shown, the Tapple one. Is that actually true? Would those people surveyed actually lose a limb for their smartphone? I'm sure many of them would, but I just really want you to ponder that as we work through the rest of this presentation, okay? Do any of you know the etymology of the word lie? No, me neither. Saxon, German, Norse, Danish, definitely been around a long time. Okay, so here is another diagram from Ofcom, who do a set of annual research, and it's absolutely wonderful research. It's methodologically perfect. They use absolutely perfect approaches. The outputs are so rich, so amazing. I absolutely love it. I really respect what they do. I love them. But let's just work through a couple of these bullet points that I've put up today. And let's see if we can maybe think about this lying thing, this are we being real thing that we've kind of hinted at today already. There's a bunch on here that I think are really, really interesting. But let's look at bullet point number 2. 40% of adults first look at their phone, apart from turning the alarm off or hitting the snooze button 10 times, as I'm sure many of you do like me. They look at it within 5 minutes of waking up. That increases to 65% of under 35s. So on the face of it, you're like, yeah. But really, how many of you in this room do not check your phone the second that you wake up? 2, 3, that's proven my point. 97% of you check your phone within a second of waking up. A lot of you, probably like me, check it through the night when you wake up. Check it last thing before you go to bed, right? And yet, people have taken part in this research, answered honestly, but it doesn't really ring true, does it? We all act in a different way. It says that 20% of us have wearable technology. Hands up, how many of you got wearable technology on right now? Well, that one, yeah, okay, that's not bad. It's probably about right. So maybe that one isn't so much of a lie, but maybe you're a slightly skewed audience. I know you're all cool and young and hip and social media and all those words, right? You are a tough crowd. Just give me a laugh. Even if you don't think I'm funny, just lie. Just lie and laugh anyway, right? That'd be awesome. Okay. 19% say that they spend more than 40 hours online each week. Again, really, 40 hours. There's 24 hours in a day. I'm sure sometimes we're on our devices for 20 of them, right? So, again, maybe the wrong audience asked that question too, but you have to question it. And this is my favorite one at the bottom. 27% of 18 to 34-year-olds multitask on their device, but only 9% of oldies like me over 35s, actually nowhere near that, but I wish, don't multitask on our devices. But of course we do. We're all like this, We all use our device in multiple ways when we're traveling. It's kind of really, really interesting, How truthful are we being when we answer these questions? Okay, so the question is, so who are we? So I mentioned earlier about this interactive survey on your phone, and I can tell you're all so enthralled you're not actually doing the survey at the moment. Feel free to do that if you are. But afterwards you can fill it in as well, and I'll make sure I let you know what the results are. So I'll just walk through the questions and just maybe give you a few things to think about. And by all means, let me know what you think, shout out, just let me know what you think about them as we move through them. Okay, so question number 1, Love Island. Any Love Island fans in the house? Love it. But how many of us, when it was on, and when it's been on for a number of years now, how many of you feel pressured not to acknowledge that you're a Love Island fan? That somehow it's not okay. It's not okay to acknowledge that you love that and you watch it and you can't wait for every single night and you check all the tweets, or even when you're in meetings, because you're scared that people might perceive you in some negative way. Again, I'm sure many of you don't feel that way, but it's quite interesting. It's very divisive as a piece of content, and how much do we kind of tell people what they want to hear? Are we actually really super honest about how we actually feel if we're asked questions like that? I mean, look how happy they are. Why can't we just, share the joy? I mean, the champagne on the boat is absolutely fantastic. World Cup. How many of you had to feign interest in the World Cup? I'm sure many of you, thank you for being so candid. I'm sure many of you love the World Cup, and I'm sure many of you love football or soccer or whatever you want to call it. But how many of you had to pretend you were super amped about England playing, a country on Tuesday night or Tuesday afternoon? How many of you kind of weren't altogether truthful about being very well that day? How many of you, maybe worked from home and watched the match, or, kind of had to talk to one of your colleagues who was super effusive about how Argentina were doing, for example, but, you didn't feel that way? It may not be lying. I'm just trying to get you to kind of think about your perspective and how you approach things at any different given moment. I think it's quite an interesting thing to think about. Okay. I mean, look how excited they are. They loved it, clearly. I did warn you about stock imagery. I mean, in fairness, I gave you every single heads up about that. Here's a really good one. Positive or negative content on social media. I'm sure a lot of you are social media managers and run companies. I'm sure a lot of you are obsessed by sentiment tracking and trying to understand it in greater detail. But if you think about yourself as a consumer, what are you naturally drawn towards? So yesterday, when you were looking at what's trending on Twitter, were you drawn towards the John Lewis advert? Did you want to see Elton, get his first piano? Or were you naturally drawn towards Brexit chaos? Brexit, more chaos. Brexit, even more chaos. The 15 hashtags that were trending yesterday. That may not be negative to some of you. Elton John and his piano might be negative to some of you, but the point I'm trying to make is, what are you drawn towards? And I think when you're trying to get content out there in the world, I think it's really important to, again, think about what's attention grabbing and what your consumers naturally gravitating towards as well when they see it. Okay. Here's a good one. Sorry, I've said that every time, haven't I? They're all good. Pat myself on the back. On a scale of 0 to 10, how close would you say your social media version of yourself is to you? Is to the person that's sitting in this room today? The person that has too many meetings, never gets to the bottom of their to-do list. People, like we're all the same, right? The version of yourself that you paint on social media, though, I'm guessing is often quite different to that, right? How much do you kind of really think about what you show, what you don't show? What does success and good things look like for you on your social media feeds? I'm guessing that nobody here can honestly put their hands up and say they're 100% authentic on social media, right? Or is there anybody here that is an absolute mirror of themselves on social media? I want to interview you. Fantastic. Come see me later. Come see me later. But really, I respect that. But a lot of us aren't necessarily there, are we? We show a certain part of ourselves on social media, and I think it's really, really interesting. Look at that guy. What's he showing about himself? What's he trying to portray to the world? He's in stock imagery, so I don't know. We've all seen this guy. How many versions of an image do you take, or a video do you take before you post it on social media? Even my authentic, 100% aligned people in the audience. Have you ever really thought about this? Have you ever really thought about how many images you take? And I'm not casting judgment, because I do this myself. I'm sure a lot of us do this when we're posting about ourselves on social media. So there's zero judgment here on any of these questions. But I just want you to really think about it. I mean, just as a show of hands, does anybody just ever take one picture and post it? Have you done that recently, anyone? That's cool. Okay, not many. Are we in the 2 to 5 range? Cool, yeah, that's right. Are we in the 5 to 10 range? Like it. Okay, now we're getting warmer. How about 10 to 20? Like it. Love the honesty. 20 to 50. Oh, see, this is when it becomes difficult to be honest about this, right? Yeah, interesting. Anyone 50 to 100? We just holding out on me? Love it. Fantastic. Anyone take over 100 shots? Anyone take over 100 shots before they'll post it? Okay. I think I've done that before. I'll put my hand up. Means get comb over right, bald spot right, as I mentioned earlier. Okay. So this is just more of a kind of free one. You know, when you look in the app, you'll see it as a kind of free text field. You can just put in what you want here. I'd be interested to know your observations on this. But why do people troll or troll, depending on how you pronounce it? You know, what is going on there? People put themselves out there on social media, don't they? Whether you're famous or not, whether you have a really strong stance on something or you don't. You know, you put yourself out there. You show opinions. You produce content and show it. And then often, I'm sure many of us in this room, and you know, and certainly in terms of more famous people, get absolutely hammered. Absolutely hammered of replies and comments, unbelievable negativity. Sometimes, you know, quite appalling stuff is posted. Sometimes it's a bit glib, it's a bit comedic, it's supposed to be funny, but often it's not. It's meant to be absolutely horrible to that person. So what's going on there? You know, I think as marketeers, we need to really ponder about that, and also ponder about how much attention we're paying to that. If that makes sense. It's a really, really, really critical point. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that. 7. Here's a good one. The B word, Brexit. How many of you, and you don't need to stick your hands up here because I know this is difficult territory, and I'm not judging either way, but how many of you have ever given an impression about how you voted, about how you think and how you feel about this topic that maybe isn't 100% aligned to what you really think? Have you felt pressured to do so? Hopefully none of you have. Hopefully everyone's been authentic. But I just want you to think about, again, how you portray yourself, how you control your image and your own brand, and how maybe you interact with key things that are going on. Have you lied to anyone in person about how you voted for Brexit? You know, a lot of what we're talking about today is online self, but I also really want you to ponder about who you are offline. And again, I'm sure many of you would never, ever consider lying in any way, shape, or form, or ever lying about Brexit. But have you ever felt pressured to not be real, not be authentic, say things that are slightly different? Okay, definitely divided the room there. Okay, I might have to ask you to laugh again in a minute. I didn't mean to kill the vibe there. I apologise. And think about it. I mean, you haven't really done it yet, although many of you who've not been interested in my presentation of perhaps doing the survey right now. But have any of you lied during what I've just asked you to do? So when you do reflect on doing the survey, when you go through it, did you think about how you were kind of managing yourself and how you were viewed? Even though it's completely anonymous and no one will ever know that you personally filled it in, think about how you might be authentic online or offline. I think it's a really interesting thing to ponder. Again, hopefully all of you are fully aligned and fully authentic and all those other words I've said 25 times, so apologies for that. Okay, so things to ponder. Apart from all the points that we've already discussed, I know a lot of you are social media professionals, and a lot of you run companies and run marketing teams. The one thing I would really, really encourage you to do, and if you need help building business cases on this, if you want me to come in and talk to your CEO, your chairman, or your investors, or your line manager, I'm more than happy to help you, because this is absolutely imperative. You know, we need to analyze the data that's being generated on social media so much more than ever. You need to look at it, you need to test things, you need to observe what's going on. You need so much more resource than I'm sure many of you have. I doubt anyone would raise their hand and say they feel they've got enough resource to do real-time or very, very quickly analyze everything that's happening in your social media feeds, right? You all could do with more, right? More investment. It's absolutely imperative. So if you need any help doing that, please let me know. And I think when you're doing that analysis, make sure that you reflect around whether your customers are giving you a 100% authentic, honest view, or are they coming at things from a different way? Are they, if they leave you a bad review, what are they trying to do in that? If they post something negative, what are they trying to do in that? What can you learn from that? How can you grow and evolve as a company? I think it's really, really imperative. I think the second point kind of sounds a bit like, all right, whatever. I know that you've probably read it and thought, oh, well, whatever. But I just would urge you so much, and I know this is so hard, but please review what you are doing regularly. When you do your amazing award-winning campaign, don't just wait until the end of the award season where you filled in all the forms and applied for things to review it. Please, as a team and as an individual, look at what you're doing all the time and make sure you're constantly analysing all the best practice examples on social media that you can find. I think it's so, so important. And you'll learn yourself. You'll do all these things here much more naturally. It's absolutely essential. And I guess my final request before I finish is please also do share a little bit of love. I mean, we talked a lot about quite a few negative things today and a lot of kind of like, are we, aren't we, and are we real? I think as brands, what I would urge you to do is maybe follow the example recently of M&S and Sainsbury's and some other brands and, share a little bit of love please put a bit of positivity back out into the universe, and I'm sure we'll be in a better place. Thank you very much.